He wasn't carrying anything. No backpack, no phone, not even a coat. And yet he was standing alone in the rain, asking for a ride. I was driving east through Nebraska after a weekend visit with some college friends. It was just past 2 a.m. when I saw him. The highway was dead silent, lined by nothing but cornfields and telephone poles that seemed to stretch forever. The rain had started about an hour earlier. Light at first, then steady, the kind that dims your headlights and makes every shadow look like it's moving. I hadn't seen another car for miles. He was standing just past a green reflective marker on the shoulder. Thumb out, thin guy, maybe late 30s, just jeans and a light gray sweater, soaked to the bone, no bag, no coat, no visible phone, nothing. I normally wouldn't stop. My dad drilled that into me when I first started driving. Don't pick up strangers at night. Nothing good comes from it. But this guy, I don't know. There was something off, sure, but also familiar, like I'd seen him before, and something about the way he was just standing there. In the rain, calm and still. It didn't feel right to leave him there. So I pulled over. The passenger door creaked when he opened it, and water immediately started dripping onto the floor mat. "Thanks," he said, voice low and flat. "You all right?" I asked, glancing at him in the mirror. He didn't respond to that, just said, "East." That was it. No town, no highway number, just east. I offered him the front seat, figuring he might want to warm up near the vents, but he slid into the back instead. That struck me as weird, but I told myself, maybe he just wanted space. The rain hammered harder against the windshield as I pulled back onto the road. For the first 20 minutes, the only sound was the rhythmic slap of the wipers and the low hum of the tires on wet asphalt. I tried to break the silence. "You from around here?" "Sort of," he said. "What town?" "Small one. You wouldn't know it." That was the end of that. I tried asking a few more things, where he was headed, if he had family nearby, but the answers were clipped. Vague. He never gave a direct answer. Just farther, or not too much longer. Something in me started to tighten. I kept glancing at the mirror. He was always sitting perfectly straight, looking dead ahead, not reacting to the road or my questions. His face was mostly hidden in shadow. Every now and then, lightning lit up the cabin, and I'd get a clearer look, thin face, pale skin, eyes that didn't blink much. I figured maybe he was coming down from something. Meth? Maybe. I started to regret stopping. That steps when I noticed a gas station. It was a shabby one. Off to the right, old-style neon sign half flickering, single pump under a rusted canopy. A diner sat next to it, lights still on. Thing is, I had passed it already. At least 20 minutes ago. I was sure of it. Same cracked pavement. Same red Coke machine outside. I even remembered the weird blinking R in restaurant, but I hadn't turned around. I'd stayed straight the whole time. My GPS was glitching too. It had been showing the same stretch of road for the last 10 miles, and the clock kept resetting to 2 a.m., no matter how long I'd been driving. "Didn't we already pass that place?" I asked, half turning. No answer. I checked the mirror again. He was still there, still facing forward. But now, he was smiling. Not a friendly smile, just this tiny upward twitch, like something had finally started to amuse him. Then I heard it. Faint, almost imperceptible at first. A soft scritch, 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 like fingernails dragging lightly across fabric, coming from the seat behind me. I stared straight ahead. The sound continued, rhythmic and slow. "You okay back there?" I asked. Silence. Then the smile vanished. He leaned forward, and for the first time, his voice changed. It dropped into something colder, more deliberate. "You should have kept driving." That was it. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded slightly on the wet road, before coming to a stop. I threw it in park, heart hammering, hands shaking. I turned around ready to tell him to get out. The back seat was empty. The door was still locked. No signs of it opening. No sound. No sudden gust of wind. Just gone. I stared for what felt like minutes. The seat was still wet, puddled, as if someone had been sitting there just seconds ago. The faint smell of damp earth and old fabric hung in the air. I didn't check the back seat. I didn't get out. I just shifted into drive and headed for the nearest lights I could find, eventually pulling into a truck stop about 20 miles down. I parked under the bright canopy and sat there with the engine running, gripping the wheel until my knuckles went white. I didn't sleep. I stayed until the sun came up. Around 7 a.m., I went inside. Still rattled, I told one of the highway patrol officers grabbing coffee about what happened. I wasn't sure why. I just needed someone to hear it. He gave me this long look and said, "You were on Route 6? Yeah. Near mile marker 82? I nodded. He exhaled. There was a hit and run. Exactly 1 year ago today. Guy was hitchhiking in the rain. Driver said he didn't see him until it was too late. Never stopped. Body was found the next morning, just lying there. He didn't say much else, just shook his head and walked off." I drove home later that morning with the windows down, radio loud. Every now and then I'd glance at the rear view, expecting to see someone sitting there again. No one ever was. But sometimes, even now, months later, I'd still come out to my car on a clear, sunny morning, and there's a small puddle of water on the back seat. No smell, no leak, no reason, just water, and that faint scent of rain. The guy I picked up was fine at first, until he started telling me details about my own life. I was halfway through a cross-country drive, somewhere in southern Arizona, navigating a lonely stretch of highway between Tucson and Lordsburg. I'd been on the road for hours, chasing the clock after a late client meeting ran long. I wasn't supposed to be driving this late. I'd planned to stop by sundown, but as usual, my schedule slipped. I told myself I'd pull over at the next decent-looking motel. It was past 11 p.m., and the highway was a tunnel of darkness. Barely any lights, not even from the stars, just my headlights slicing through the flat desert road. I was getting tired, that buzzy kind of fatigue, where the lines on the road start to blur, and you second-guess every shape in the shadows. That's Seps when I saw him. A man standing just past a faded green sign, mile marker 77. He stepped forward, arm raised in a half-wave, half-hitchhike motion. No flailing, no desperation, just calm. He looked to be in his 40s. Neat haircut, clean flannel, no backpack or gear that I could see. He didn't seem drunk or strung out, and he wasn't wearing the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd been walking for hours. Something about him felt safe. That, or I was just too exhausted to care. I slowed down and rolled down the window. "You all right?" I asked. "My car died a few miles back," he said. His voice was low, level, almost too calm, trying to get to the next town. He didn't say which town, just gestured east. I hesitated, but nodded. "Hop in." He thanked me and got into the passenger seat. He didn't smell like sweat or dirt, just the desert air and something faintly herbal, like eucalyptus. The doors locked automatically, and we drove off. For a while it was fine. We made light conversation. He asked if I was heading home or on business. I told him I was a project manager, headed to Albuquerque for a site inspection. He nodded, like he already knew. "You've got a long night ahead," he said, smiling. "Yeah," I said, glancing at the fuel gauge. "Not much out here." "I know," he said. "You Seb always preferred driving at night, though." I blinked. "What?" He chuckled softly. "Back in college, you said always volunteer for late-night coffee runs. Said the world felt quieter after 10. That gave me pause. I hadn't mentioned college, or coffee, or anything remotely personal. Maybe he was guessing. Lucky guess, I told myself. People say weird things in small talk. I changed the subject. You from around here? He nodded. Used to be. Which town? He looked out the window. Hard to say. Things change. A few more miles passed in silence. I turned on the radio to a low hum. Some old country station barely cutting through the static. It felt less lonely with some noise. Then he spoke again. How's Sep's your sister doing? The surgery go okay? I nearly hit the brakes. He said it so casually, like we were old friends catching up. How do you know about that? I asked. He shrugged. You were worried last month, but it went fine. She Sep's resting at home now. I hadn't posted anything about it. Not online, not at work. Barely talked to anyone about it outside of family. What's your name? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled. You already know. I felt my grip on the wheel tighten. My heart was beating harder now, pumping adrenaline into the fatigue. I glanced over at him. He was still calm, too calm. Okay, I said carefully. Yousev got me curious. Did we meet before? He tilted his head. You don't remember the lake. You were 9. Slipped under the raft when everyone else was eating lunch. I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't thought about that in years. I almost drowned at a family picnic when I was a kid. It was never in a photo album, never shared on social media. My parents didn't talk about it after it happened. How do you know that? He didn't answer, just smiled again, wider this time. Ahead I saw a gas station coming into view, lit in flickering yellow light. One pump, tiny convenience store, like something pulled from a postcard in the 80s. I'm stopping here, I said quickly. His smile faded. I wouldn't hit, if I were you. I stared straight ahead. What's that supposed to mean? You know what happens here. My hands went cold. I want you to get out, I said. My voice was firmer now. He didn't yet respond. I pulled into the lot, not slowing down. Get out, I said again. Now. Still nothing. I turned to face him fully. The passenger seat was empty. The door was still closed, still locked. I hadn't heard it open, hadn't felt a change in air or pressure. I sat there, stunned, heart racing. Then I remembered the dash cam. I'd had it running the entire trip. Part habit, part precaution. I dug through my bag, pulled out my laptop, and played back the footage. There he was, getting in, talking, smiling. For the first 10 minutes. Then nothing. Just me, talking to no one, reacting, laughing, arguing, alone. I left the gas station and drove the rest of the way in silence, headlights carving through desert blackness. I checked into a roadside motel just outside Lordsburg, double-locked the door, and left every light on. I never told anyone the full story. I couldn't explain it without sounding unhinged. A few years later, I was driving that same stretch again, midday this time, with the sun beating down and the road shimmering with heat. I slowed as I passed a green sign, mile marker 77. Only the pole was there. The number was gone. He asked for a ride, just until the next light. The road didn't yet have any lights for 50 miles. It was just after 2 a.m., and I'd been driving since early evening, somewhere along a stretch of forgotten back roads in western Kentucky. Long-haul trucking can mess with your sense of time, but on roads like that, it's space that starts to unravel. The miles bleed together into one long patch of cracked pavement and flickering yellow lines. No signs, no cars, just the hum of the rig and whatever's playing low on the radio. I was overdue for fuel and caffeine, so when I saw the dull glow of a truck stop in the distance, I took the turn. It was barely more than a two-pump stop. The kind of place that might have been lively back in the 80s, but hadn't seen real business in years. The signage was faded, the windows dusty, and a buzzing yellow floodlight cast weird shadows over the lot. I pulled in and began fueling up. That fits when I saw him. He walked out from the side of the building, like he'd been waiting in the shadows. Mid-40s Seth, maybe. Work boots, torn flannel, pale as drywall under the floodlights, hands in his pockets. Looked tired, maybe a little lost. He didn't approach too fast, just close enough to talk over the hum of the pump. "You headed east?" he asked. I nodded. "Mind giving me a ride? Just until the next light." The phrasing struck me. Next light? There weren't any traffic signals out here. No street lamps. I'd just driven through 50 miles of darkness. I hesitated. But there's an unspoken rule among truckers. When someone's clearly down on their luck and asking respectfully, you help out. Especially out here, where walking could get you killed. "Sure," I said, gesturing to the passenger door. "Hop in." He didn't say thank you. Just climbed into the cab without another word and shut the door softly behind him. We pulled out of the lot and headed east. The sky was moonless, clouds hanging low like soot. My headlights illuminated only a few car lengths ahead. Everything beyond that was pitch. We drove in silence for a while. The guy didn't give a name, didn't ask questions, just stared out the window like something might be following us. I tried making conversation, where he was coming from, if he was all right, what this next light was. He gave me short answers. One word, sometimes two. No eye contact. Just that steady, fixed stare. Something in my gut started to twist. I chalked it up to nerves and exhaustion. I'd done overnight runs before, picked up plenty of people over the years. Drifters, hitchers, even the occasional stranded motorist. But this guy was different. It was the silence. It felt. Then he started muttering. At first I couldn't catch the words. Just soft noises under his breath. Thought maybe he was praying. But then I started to make them out. It always resets. Not the right exit this time. This is the long part. I kept my eyes on the road, trying to stay calm. "You all right back there?" He didn't said answer. His posture stiffened. Shoulders rigid, hands twitching now and then, fingers tapping in erratic bursts against his thigh. I noticed he kept glancing at the glove box, like he was waiting for something to come out of it. I tried to laugh, lighten the mood. "You sure this next light set of yours is coming up soon?" His eyes finally met mine in the side mirror. There was no humor in them. "You'll see it when we stir past it." That was all he said. I looked ahead. Nothing but black road, the same cracked shoulder, same endless stretch of trees and power poles. No signs, no intersections, no light. I started to feel claustrophobic in the cab, like the darkness outside had thickened and was pressing in against the glass. My hands gripped the wheel a little tighter. The hairs on my neck were standing up. Then he moved. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled something out, a folded piece of paper. He held it out in front of me without speaking. I took it cautiously, trying to keep one eye on the road. It was a photo, a torn color photo, grainy, slightly warped by water damage. It showed my truck, same color, same cab, same decals, parked in that exact truck stop lot, but from an angle I never saw, like someone had taken it from behind one of the gas pumps. I checked the timestamp printed on the back corner. Tonight sets date. I felt a cold sweat break out along my spine. "How'd you get this?" I asked, voice sharper now. He didn't answer, just stared ahead. Same vacant expression. That was it. I pulled the brakes hard. The rig hissed and jerked slightly, coming to a rough stop in the middle of the road. I threw it in neutral and turned toward him. "Get out," I said. "Ride set's over." I reached for the door handle, but when I looked to the passenger seat, he was gone. The door was still shut, still locked. The seat was cold, but the photo was still in my hand. The truck hadn't stopped moving. I checked the odometer, still ticking. We'd never actually braked. The dread hit me like a stomach punch. I stomped the pedal and drove, hard. I didn't care how far. I needed lights. People. Anything real. Eventually, I saw the glow of a way station, just outside of a small town. Bright halogens overhead. A few rigs idling in the lot. I pulled in, killed the engine, and sat there for a minute in silence, breathing like I'd run a marathon. Then I noticed something in the side mirror, something taped to the glass. I stepped out into the light and peeled it off. Another photo. This time it was me, asleep in the cab, my head tilted back against the seat, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. The interior light was on, and the timestamp? It was from earlier that same night, at 1:47 a.m. Before I said ever seen the man, before I stopped at the truck stop, before I even realized I was being watched. I stood there for a long time, staring at the photo. Then I crumpled it, tossed it into the trash, and climbed back into the truck. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't it even turn off the engine. I never took that back road again. From then on, I stuck to the major highways, rest stops, bright lights, people, and I never pick up strangers anymore. Especially not the ones who ask for a ride to nowhere. Just until the next light.